Editing. Now, this is tricky because editing can be complicated to get done at the highest possible quality. It can take a lot of time. I would strongly recommend getting a professional agency like Casting Cred, someone else if you want to do it on your behalf, simply because if you are a marketer within an organization, do you really have the time and inclination, and is it the best use of your time to be editing as well? You will find that editing a single episode can take a day to do, or certainly to do everything for the episode, to prepare what content you're going to have, what the topics are going to be, run the recording session, your hours for editing as well, producing the final file, uploading it, producing the content associated with that. Easily a day, if not more than that. You can take 1 hour on doing that if you used a professional podcast production agency like Casting Cred to do that on your behalf. So if you're thinking of doing that, you test the water. You have a conversation with me, castingcred.com. I'm happy to have a half-hour conversation with you to explore what you want to do and whether or not what I do is going to be relevant to you as well. But if you're interested in perhaps producing your podcast, your video show, your book, or just your podcast, let's have a conversation and see what can be done. But I don't want to hide editing from you. I want to show you exactly what I tend to go through for each individual episode that I produce or my editors produce. So these are some key areas that I look at just to try and get the quality of the sound as good as possible. So first of all, DeReverb. A lot of people aren't in optimal environments. They've got a bit of echo. DeReverb will just take away the echo. You've got to be very careful about the percentage and play with the percentage just to get it right. But in general, you don't want to do this. The right solution is recording in a better environment without any echo. But if you've got echo, then you perhaps actually have to do reverb to begin with. Then you might have to go for a noise reduction. Again, hopefully you don't have to do this. This is more of a consistent noise. So like fan noise is something that you want to get rid of. The issue with this is that you're going to start to eat into voice frequencies just a little bit if you do automated noise reductions. So you're going to be a bit careful with it, but a little bit of noise reduction can be effective, again, for recording in a suboptimal environment. Key editing tasks, EQ. Now, a lot of amateur editors provide and run a fairly standard EQ. So they have an EQ that they like that maybe emphasizes some bass, some treble, and then that's it, they run it. But the reality is everyone's voice is a little bit different. And of course, microphones are different as well, and will do different things to voices. But what you want to be doing is listening to each individual track and actually running a fairly bespoke EQ based upon the individual voice. So, in general, a female voice will have a slightly higher optimum bass level to emphasize, to give gravitas compared with a male voice. So you want to make sure that you have a significantly different standard EQ that you start with for female voices over male ones. I like mid cuts as well, because quite often different microphones like to give a bit of a rumbly emphasis to mid-level. So I like to take a little bit out of mid-level and emphasize certain high frequencies. But there's so much I could say on this. I just wanted to emphasize, treat each voice individually, and remember just to have a decent female and male starting off point, and then flick different frequencies just to see the impact that it has on the final sound. Compression. What's compression? So if you imagine that audio wave again, if someone talking to a microphone talks quite quietly and then talks quite loudly, that will be a big difference in the waveform. There's a lot of wave for the loudness and not so much wave for the softness. And what you'll find is if you don't compress that kind of voice, then if someone's listening to your show again in that non-optimal environment. So if someone's listening to your show, for instance, on a train, which many people will do, then there'll be a lot of background noise going on. And if the voice goes quite quiet, they're not going to be able to hear you. So the way to deal with that is to compress the audio wave. And the way that compression works is that it pushes down the loudest parts to make it less of a step change compared with the softest part of the recording. And then after you've compressed the audio, you can amplify everything, and that will bring up the previously loud parts, obviously, but also it will bring up the previously soft parts and end up you having not as a significant difference between the loud parts and the soft parts of the recording. There are many different compression types out there and compression levels that you can do. You're probably better starting with presets and then just seeing what kind of impact that has in the voice. But in general, a certain amount of compression is a good idea so that there aren't too many low volume parts of your episode. Match loudness. Okay, so once you've done your compression, then you want to sure that you want to be sure that the whole episode is roughly the same level of loudness as previous episodes and compared with other podcasts out there as well. And the way to do that is there's a match loudness setting in decent quality audio recording software. So the audio recording software I use is Adobe Audition. And what match loudness does is, in fact, it's probably better visualized. So if you have a look at the audio file here, the wave, and you can see the level of loudness based upon how much it's going up and down there. So it's not that loud. But if you look on the next slide, this is me matching the loudness to previous episodes. And you see how much more the voice goes up and down there. That means it's much louder. So once you've done the compression, you can match the loudness to try and ensure that your podcast episode sounds roughly the same loudness as your previous episodes and other episodes out there, because that's something that will really annoy people. If your podcast is a lot louder or a lot softer than other podcasts that people are used to listening to, they'll get annoyed. Now, the next step after that is a combined edit. So you've edited each track individually, and you've got things like noise cancellation, noise reduction, EQ done, compression done, match loudness. Then you can focus on the tracks together. And with the tracks together, that's where I look at things like silences, taking out repetitions, taking out ums and ahs, and just making sure that everything sounds as effectively as possible. So you can start to do things like silence individuals, maybe when they make too many unneeded noises when someone else is speaking. So some people will do things like when someone else is speaking, and that can get a bit annoying for the listener. So you can, when you're recording people in separate tracks,
agree with you. Yeah,
of course I can mute.
I think that's
Johnny,
good advice.
so that's a good thing.